Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another election prediction. This time we have Gavin Newsom, the governor from California, and former President Donald Trump. So, Gavin Newsom, he's the candidate in case of a medical emergency for Joe Biden. I think that if Biden has a health incident, that they'll definitely look to Gavin Newsom as the replacement, especially if it's before the Democratic primary even holds any contests. I could see Newsom running and probably beating Harris in a primary. However, if Biden's health problems occurs after he already wins the nomination, then I see them replacing him with Kamala Harris because she's just the natural one in line for that. But this scenario only happens if Biden drops out before the primary begins, because Newsom would be favored to win there just because he's a pretty good debater. But let's get right into it. So the first state, Colorado, it's a very progressive left-wing state. Newsom would have quite an easy time at winning it. New Mexico and Virginia, traditionally Democratic states. Newsom can unite most of the base here and just win them by the same margins. Biden would win both these states. Iowa, Newsom actually performs quite terrible in Iowa, but it's really a lost cause, this state anyway, so it's safe Republican. Ohio, he's not as bad as Harris in the state of Ohio. He would keep it in the likely margin, but still really wouldn't contest the state that well. Texas, I could see Newsom performing a bit worse in Texas because, again, you look at Newsom in the governor election in California, he underperformed the Latino voters, and the Latino voters are a key aspect in Texas. You really need good margins among them to be competitive in the state. So I have this as likely Republican, which would also cause Florida to be likely Republican, just out of reach as well. Alaska, again, the rural voter here, or the rural voters in the state of Alaska, really wouldn't favor Gavin Newsom quite that much. He wouldn't perform as well there, so I just see it as safe Republican when it usually would be likely Republican. Maine at large, I think it would just still say safe Democratic. Well, Trump wins Maine second by a likely margin. Well, I have Nebraska second. Again, I think Biden would be a bit better of a candidate here. I could see Nebraska second going down to only a 4-point Newsom victory. New Hampshire, well, thing is, he wouldn't have an incumbency advantage, but Trump is quite socially conservative now, and it's a socially liberal state here. So you Newsom doing quite well in New Hampshire, winning it by a likely margin or so. Same with Minnesota. I think Newsom would still turn out most of the base here to win it by a decent margin, by a likely 7-point victory, I would say. In Nevada and Arizona, Nevada, just with Gavin Newsom's underperformance of Latino voters in the state of California, I have Newsom narrowly losing Nevada by a tilt margin, even though it's a quite a socially liberal state. I could just see independent voters and Latino voters leaning away from Newsom here, because, again, Newsom would probably struggle a bit without incumbency advantage. Arizona, however, the state's pretty opposed to Donald Trump. I still think Newsom would be able to get a narrow victory in this state against him. In North Carolina and Georgia, I don't think he would be super inspiring to black voters. He'll probably definitely pick a black vice presidential nominee, but still don't think that would be enough to win these two states against Trump. So I have it North Carolina going as lean and Georgia as tilt Republican. So the election comes down to the Rust Belt. Pretty much whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the election. So Wisconsin, let's go with that state first. I think this state, again, with Trump being quite populist, I think he would be able to flip Wisconsin against Gavin Newsom. However, Michigan, again, with that Democratic trifecta in this state, and Democrats frequently lead in the polls here, I think Newsom would still be favored to win here by about 1.5% against Donald Trump. But the election comes down to Pennsylvania, as it usually does. I think this will be the tipping point state for either party here. So, again, Trump doesn't have the best favorability rating in Pennsylvania. That's definitely going to hurt him. And Newsom, with him being a more younger and energetic candidate, he'll definitely do quite well in the debates, probably a bit better than Joe Biden would, because, again, Biden's quite old. So, and Trump's quite old as well, so he could be a bit more appealing to those independent voters who want a younger leader, because the past elections have just been a bunch of too old people against each other, 2016 and 2020. So again, Pennsylvania would come down to the wire here. Newsom, he could be labeled as an elitist by Donald Trump, while Newsom just points out how unfavorable Trump is, and he could just attack him in the debates quite well. We've seen Newsom debate before. He's quite decent at it. So it'll definitely come down to the wire. Probably depend on the last few debates how they go. But I think Newsom would be able to narrowly edge it out over Donald Trump. So 271 to 267, the closest election since the 2000 election, would come down to the wire in Pennsylvania. Probably just a few thousand votes. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of recounts here. But overall, this is how I see the election going. It was Newsom versus Trump. So I would highly recommend subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed this video. And leave a comment down below. Do you think Trump would beat Newsom, or you think Newsom would have a bigger victory against Trump? Curious about your feedback. But other than that, I'll see y'all in the next video.